Let's go ahead now and get into our discussion. So, um, what we've been talking about are these 15 Sheilas. So, the 15 Sheilas, they are these 15 positive qualities of positive behavior. And so far, we've talked about 9 of them. There's one that we skipped because it's kind of self explanatory. And then last week, I wasn't able to do the online meditation. My dear friend Dada Veda did the online meditation, and he did adherence to the principles of Yama and Niyama, which is number 10. So go ahead and read through this, and then I'll tell you which one we're doing today. I just have to do something in back here. Just 1 second. Okay, so we are today talking about number 9, keeping aloof from criticizing others, condemning others, mudslinging, and all sorts of groupisms. And to illustrate this Sheila, I have a reading for us. Okay? So the reading is called Father Forgets. You may have read it before. Let me know if you have in the chat. Listen, son. I'm saying this as you lie asleep. One little hand crumpled under your cheek and blonde curls sticky over your wet forehead. I've broken into your room alone just a few minutes ago. As I sat reading my paper in the library, a stifling wave of remorse swept over me. Guiltily, I came to your bedside. There are things which I am thinking, son. I had been cross to you. I scolded you as you were dressing for school because you gave your face a mere dab with the towel. I took you to task for not cleaning your shoes. I called out angrily when you threw some of your things on the floor. At breakfast, I found fault too. You spilled things. You gulped down your food. You put your elbows on the table. You spread butter too thick on your bread. As you started off to play and I made for my train, you turned and waved a hand and called, "Goodbye, Daddy." I frowned and said in reply, "Hold your shoulders back." Then it began all over again, late this afternoon. As I came up the road, I spied you, down on your knees playing marbles. There were holes in your socks. I humiliated you before your friends by marching you ahead of me to the house. Socks were expensive, and if you had to buy them, you would be more careful. I imagine that, son, from a father. Do you remember later when I was reading in the library how you came timidly with a sort of hurt look in your eyes? I glanced up over my paper, impatient at the interruption. You hesitated at the door. "What is it that you want?" I snapped. You said nothing, but ran across in one tempestuous, tempestuous plunge, threw your arms around my neck, and kissed me. Your small arms tightened with affection that God had set blooming in your heart, which even neglect could not wither. Then you were gone, pattering up the stairs. Well, son, it was shortly afterwards that my paper slipped from my hands, and a terrible sickening fear came over me. What has habit been doing to me? The habit of finding fault or reprimanding? This was my reward to you for being a boy. It was not that I did not love you, it was that I expected too much of you. I was measuring you by the yardstick of my own years. There was so much that was good, fine, and true in your character. The little heart of yours was as big as the dawn itself over the hills. This was shown by your spontaneous impulse to rush in and kiss me goodnight. Nothing else mattered tonight, son. I've come to your bedside in the darkness. I have knelt there, ashamed. It is a feeble atonement. I know that you would not understand these things which I have told you in the waking hours. Tomorrow I will be a real daddy. I will chum with you, suffer when you suffer, and laugh when you laugh. I will bite my tongue when impatient words come. I will keep saying, as if it were a ritual, he is nothing but a boy, a little boy. I'm afraid I've visualized you as a man. Yet as I see you now, son, crumpled and weary in your bed, I see that you are still a baby. Yesterday you were in your mother's arms, your head on her shoulder. I've asked too much, too much. So it's a very, very powerful, touching read that I don't know how old this reading is. Father Forgets, maybe about, I have no idea, close to 100 years old. But it's so insightful, and it conveys directly, so easily, just why it is that we should not criticize others. And what I'd like you to do, please, in the chat is I would like for you to type, what did this reading mean to you? What was the Father conveying? What was the issue that was going on? So please go ahead and do that. And in the meantime, I will just say a few more words until you get a chance to comment on that. One of the things that I like about the reading is that the Father says, "What has habit done to me?" Because you see, criticism becomes a habit. And unfortunately, when you criticize somebody too much, you sever that relationship little by little. You think that you are helping that person, and you think that you are helping the situation by relieving yourself of the criticisms. But actually, what happens is that the other person whom you criticize, they become defensive. How many times has it happened that, somebody criticized you? Let's say they said something like, you never wash the dishes when you're done. And then the first thing you think is, hello, just a couple of nights ago I washed my dishes. Or even last week I washed my dishes. Or yes, I do. I went to my friend's house the other night and I washed my dishes. And so the first thing that comes to the mind when somebody criticizes us is our own self-preservation. We become defensive. We don't have an open mind and just agree and say, "Oh, I have been doing that too, in a sparse way. I need to do that more." No, the first thing that comes is our own self-defense. And so when you criticize people, you're just putting them on the defensive. You're not really getting through to them. It's not a successful attempt at any transformation unless you are very psychological about how you communicate something. And then it could have a better effect. So, okay, good. We have some comments here. Before I go on any more on this topic, I just want to see if anybody has any thoughts on the reading. So I see here, well, Martha, first of all, said, Namaskar. Thanks for reminding about the 15 Shilas. Yamas and niyamas are important to follow, right? That was number 10, which Dada Veda did last week. I think, oh, let's look at the chat. I think that there was another comment before that too. Minna said, Namaskar, grateful for my son. He's moving home again today. He's moving from home. Okay, your son Matthias. My son is named Matisse. And I think the first name Matisse, or the name Matisse, comes from Matthias. So our son is named the same thing. Isn't that interesting? Minna, let me know what you thought about the reading Father Forgets, okay? And I'm sorry that your son is moving out. Um, I hope that you have a really beautiful time with him before he goes. So, and then Tisha says, which, oh, you cannot see in the chat there. Let's see if this helps. Okay, I'll have to do it like this. It is an act of unconditional love. They both want to benefit themselves by helping each other without realizing how powerful and strong their words are. I needed this meditation. It was beautiful. Thank you. No problem. No problem. Yes, this is a very important topic, this topic of not criticizing others. And then October says, it means that I have to change my behavior in a serious way. Okay. It was very thought-provoking. Oh, okay. So no, he is moving home to me. So your son is moving back, Minna. So then, are you happy about that? I got a little confused when you said heartbroken. Let us know, okay? Thank you. And October says I have to change my behavior in a serious way. Perhaps you mean by not criticizing others. That is something we all should work on, learn to avoid. Okay, we'll come back to this topic. Let me go ahead and share with you another story. Okay. There was once this couple, and the woman in the relationship, she belonged to this women's group, and they got together once a week and discussed different topics. And one time for the week, they said, "Okay, let's have a week of self-improvement. So, here's our homework for the week. Each of us will go home and we will think about 6 things that we are doing wrong, 6 things that we need to improve in our lives, and then we'll bring it back next week and we'll have a chat about it." So one of the young ladies in the group went home and she thought, "Geez, gosh, where do I begin with all my defects?" So she decided to put it on her husband. And she told her husband, "Look, sweetheart, at my sister's circle, we're doing self-improvement this week, and I need to come up with 6 defects that I have. And could you help me with that, please? Could you tell me, 6 things that you think I need to improve on?" And he was just immediately, his heart, like, had that feeling of like fear, like he knew this was a bad idea. And then he later on that night, he's like, standing in the stairway, like just kind of thinking, and he's like, oh, he's like, why did she do this to me? Why did she put this on me? Because I could find 1,000 things that are wrong with her, 1,000 problems that she has, and she's now she wants me to come up with these 6. So he thinks about it. And later, when he sees her, she says, "Okay, so what are the 6 things?" And he says, "Darling, I'll let you know tomorrow. Let's just sleep. Let me sleep on it tonight, and I'll let you know tomorrow. I'll send it to you in an email." And she says, "Okay." So they go to bed. The next day comes. They both go to work. And as she goes to her job, she starts feeling anxious. She starts feeling like, gosh, wondering, like, what is he going to say about me? What does he think about? Why he had to take all this time to think about it? He still hasn't emailed me. I wonder what he's going to say. And she starts to really worry about it. And then a little while later, somebody announced that she had received a gift. And she walks up to the front desk and she sees these 6 roses with an envelope with her name on it. And she opens the envelope, and it was a letter from her husband. And her husband wrote, "Darling, you asked me to think of 6 things that are wrong with you, to find 6 faults within you or about you. But I could not think of a single one. Instead, I want to give you these 6 roses, and I want you to know that I love you just the way you are. Exactly how you are makes me so happy, and I wouldn't change anything about you." And of course, when she read that letter and she saw those roses, she felt so in love with life and in love with herself and in love with him. And he usually came home later, a little later than her. And how do you think she greeted him when he arrived home? The minute he walked in, she ran to him and threw her arms around him and told him that that was one of the most beautiful things she'd ever experienced in her life. And then that weekend, when she went to see her friends, and they all reported on their week of self-improvement, she told them the story of what her husband did. And all of them couldn't believe how beautiful of a gesture that was. And the next time they all got together and they saw him, that's all they wanted to talk about with him. That was the first thing they wanted to talk about with him, is how that was the most beautiful thing that they'd all ever heard anybody do. And so the man, he learned something. He said, it's better not to criticize people. when I did that for her, I mean, look how much has just in this week, we've had such a beautiful week. Just by loving her unconditionally, accepting her, look at this effect. And so he said, yeah, I think that's the way to do things. It's just best to avoid criticism. So let me know your thoughts on this story, what the husband did, and I'll continue now interpreting it a little bit more. And so then you see, what we should do is, rather than criticize other people, is we should give positive reinforcement. When somebody does something that you don't like, it's best to try and wait for a time when they do something that you do like. And then you can praise the positive behavior. You can encourage what is good. Sometimes when you focus too much on what is bad, it has, the mind is kind of staying in that place. Also, not only should we avoid verbally criticizing people, but we also should avoid criticizing people in our minds. I'll tell you a personal story. When for a long time, my father, he's a conservative Christian, and he knows that I practice meditation, and we have our spiritual community that is not Christian, might have some similar values to Christianity, but clearly is not. So he knows all this. And for a long time, I thought that he accepted that because he never said anything about it, and he seemed okay with it. But then, let's say years later or something like that, one day he just started talking about it and criticizing everything that I'd been doing. And I was surprised. So it means that he had not been verbally trying to talk to me about that, criticize that about me, but it was in his mind. And it was in his mind so much that one day it spilled out in a very, non-prudent way, in like an aggressive way. So that is why we should also not criticize in our minds, because it's going to come out one day and it's going to like come out like an avalanche. Or B, the criticisms, if you call somebody stupid in your mind but you don't say it to them, they won't be affected. They'll be mildly affected by your energy. Mildly, they might feel something, but they won't be affected very much. But you will be affected because the word stupid and the criticism is in your mind. And if you don't let that go, you will become stupid. You will become what you criticize. And if you hate something, now I'm going very deep. If you hate something, we yogis, we believe in reincarnation. In your next life, you might not have the pleasure of reincarnating into something that you love. You might reincarnate into something that you hate. It all depends on what you do more. Do you love more or do you hate more? And if you hate more, you'll become what you hate. We know as spiritual people, as you think, so you become. So the criticisms that are in our mind should also be dispelled, and they should be replaced constantly by something positive about other people or about ourselves. The best thing that I find to replace my negative thoughts is I say my mantra, or I say Baba Nam Kevalam, or I just talk to God, talk to the Supreme right away. If I call somebody stupid, I immediately have this habit now of saying right after that, sorry, God, I just called you stupid. And I remember that everything is the Supreme Consciousness. We should be gentle with everything, loving with everything, because all is that Supreme. So I see some comments here. Let's see. Tisha says, great for self-healing to not criticize ourselves, as we should accept who we are. I needed this reminder since lately I've been too hard on myself, trying to be perfect in all areas in my life. It's good to self-reflect. Absolutely. Thank you, Tisha. Let's see. There's some comments here as well. Minna says, no, he's moving home to me again, right? Yes, he has a breakup with his girlfriend. And I want to make sure you all are reading what I'm reading. So he has a breakup with his girlfriend. Love is needed. Criticisms can't heal a broken heart. That's true. Definitely. So enjoy then this time of being with your son and helping him through this difficult time. We tell him we all wish him well. We send him much love. A broken heart is very hard to heal because especially the longer that we were in a relationship with somebody. The longer you are, the longer it could take to heal, but the mind wants to heal. In the beginning, we call it samskara, that mental impression of that relationship. It's like a thorn at the side of the mind, like, oh, I miss her, I miss him, oh, I miss that person, oh, I should have done this, oh, I wish they could come back. Like the mind doesn't want that. The mind doesn't want that affliction. So the mind, in order to heal, sometimes has to like regurgitate everything. And that's why you think about that person, you think about the relationship, or you just want to go back to that person just so that the mind can go back to its normal state. And so that part is what's difficult to get over somebody, because the more time you spent with somebody, the more samskara you've accumulated, means more mental impressions you have with that person, that you'll need to release so that you can go back to how you were before you met that person. And that takes time. That takes a lot of time. So hopefully, one of the best things to do during those times is to turn to spirituality and meditation as best as you can. And if it's hard to concentrate, then meet with your friends here online to meditate with and be on a spiritual vibe with. Let's see. Mina says, our fathers would get along well. I have been stupid all my life and wrong in his eyes. I just let go. Thank you. Our fathers would get along well. So your father and my father are similar. Your father has thought that you were stupid all your life. Okay. And you were wrong in his eyes, but you just let it go. Yes, exactly. You just have to let it go. And you have to forgive that, basically, you know, and let go. Thank you for sharing that, Minna. And then Chrysola here says, it was very thought-provoking. October said he viewed her as a complete whole, unconditional love. Right. Isn't that story beautiful, October, how he viewed his wife? He chose, and because he knew there was problems with her, right? Like there's problems with all of us. But he chose not to verbalize. He chose to see the love, to that was the best thing to do in the moment. And then Chrysola says, what's in the heart will enter the mind. What's in the mind will come out of the mouth. Yes. That's so true. That's why we have to watch our thoughts, because they come out. Okay? They come out, and they come out in very inopportune ways. Whatever you've been thinking. All right. So we can go ahead and start to close unless people have any more comments. I hope you found this discussion valuable, and you're finding these 15 Shilas valuable, these 15 qualities of great character. And if we avoid criticizing people, people will like us more. If we avoid gossiping, negative things about others, people will like us more. We'll be better people, or we'll have better relationships with our children, with our families, with our friends. And one last thing is that, for example, somebody might think I'm a hypocrite because if you go to my Facebook page, you'll see that I've posted things criticizing Trump, criticizing Biden, criticizing these policies. But there's a difference between criticizing an individual and criticizing an individual that causes collective harm. So it's important that we criticize our government. It's important that we criticize those in power, because when they commit crimes or faults, now they affect the collective, and we cannot tolerate that. We must stand up against that. But when it's on a one-on-one basis, then we can choose to forgive an individual. We can choose to not criticize an individual. And instead, we can be empathetic, and we can say, rather than criticize somebody, contemplate, why do they do that? Why did they do that? Is it that they have some trauma, some pain? Is it that something happened to them? And although that may not correct something negative that they're doing, that you don't like, it helps you to see the bigger picture, and that's what's missing in your perspective in that moment. We need to see that. When we see, in fact, that others have suffered so much, and that's why they do things, or they've been miseducated, then we now know how to help. We now know how to respond. And we see that there's no reason to fault them that much. They are also a product of their circumstances.